Russian missile strikes on Ukraine damage EU and UK offices. Kyiv, Ukraine, August 28, 2025. Russia launched a massive missile and drone attack on Ukraine overnight, targeting the capital, Kyiv, in what Ukrainian officials described as the second largest assault since the full-scale invasion began in February 2022. The barrage, which included 598 drones and 31 missiles, resulted in at least 21 deaths, including a 2-year-old child, and caused significant damage to civilian infrastructure, including the offices of the European Union delegation and the British Council in Kyiv. Details of the attack. The attack began in the early hours of August 28, 2025, with explosions lighting up the night sky over Kyiv. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the strikes as a deliberate response to ongoing diplomatic efforts to broker peace, stating Russia chooses ballistics instead of the negotiating table. The assault targeted residential areas, civilian infrastructure, and diplomatic facilities, with 2 missiles striking near the EU delegation office within 20 seconds of each other, causing severe damage due to the shockwave. The British Council's office was also heavily damaged, forcing it to close to visitors until further notice. EU Ambassador to Ukraine, Katerina Mathernova, reported on X that the EU delegation was severely impacted, describing the attack as Moscow's true answer to peace efforts. The British Council confirmed damage to its Kyiv office in a Facebook post, noting that its work with Ukrainian partners in education and culture would continue despite delays. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha called the strikes a violation of the Vienna Convention as they targeted diplomatic missions and urged a strong international response. In addition to the EU and UK offices, the attack damaged a Turkish enterprise and the Azerbaijan embassy, though no casualties were reported at these sites. The strikes also hit a US-owned civilian enterprise in Zakarpattia, which manufactured household goods, further highlighting Russia's targeting of non-military facilities. International reactions. The attack drew widespread condemnation from global leaders. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen expressed outrage, calling it another grim reminder of what is at stake and noting that the Kremlin's actions show its intent to terrorize Ukraine by targeting civilians and diplomatic sites. She announced that EU countries are preparing a 19th sanctions package against Russia and exploring ways to use frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine. UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer described the strikes as senseless, accusing Russian President Vladimir Putin of killing children and civilians and sabotaging hopes of peace. French President Emmanuel Macron stated that the attack demonstrated Russia's lack of will for peace, while Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni remarked that it showed who truly seeks peace and who does not. U.S. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg criticized the attack on X, noting that it targeted residential areas in Kyiv, blasting civilian trains, the EU and British Mission Council offices, and innocent civilians, undermining President Trump's peace initiatives. Trump's press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, stated that the U.S. president was not happy but not surprised by the attack, though this response was noted as less forceful than other leaders. Russia's stance and strategic context. Russia's defense ministry claimed the strikes targeted Ukrainian military-industrial facilities and air bases, denying any intent to hit civilian targets. The Kremlin maintained that it remains open to peace talks despite the escalation. However, Ukrainian officials and analysts argue that the attack was a deliberate signal of Russia's rejection of diplomacy, especially following the recent Alaska summit where no peace deal was reached. The timing of the attack coincides with heightened tensions as Ukraine recently began using US-supplied ATACMS and UK-supplied Storm Shadow missiles to strike Russian territory following approvals from the Biden administration and UK government. These actions were partly in response to Russia's deployment of North Korean troops to the Kursk region, where Ukraine holds over 1,000 square kilometers of Russian land. Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that such Western-supplied missile strikes could escalate the conflict to a global scale, though Western leaders, including NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, have dismissed these threats as irresponsible rhetoric. Impact and ongoing response. The attack caused significant civilian casualties and infrastructure damage. In Kyiv, rescuers worked through the night to clear debris from apartment buildings hit by the strikes, with images showing clouds of smoke and shattered structures. The State Emergency Service of Ukraine reported that 21 people were killed, with ongoing efforts to assist the wounded and displaced. Ukraine's air defenses intercepted a significant portion of the incoming drones and missiles, but the sheer volume of the attack overwhelmed some systems. President Zelensky reiterated calls for more Western-supplied air defense systems, such as U.S.-made Patriots, to protect against future strikes. The U.S. recently approved a $322 million weapons package for Ukraine, including surface-to-air missile systems, while European allies have committed $1.5 billion to purchase additional U.S. weapons for Kyiv. The European Union and NATO reaffirmed their unwavering support for Ukraine. NATO emphasized that Ukraine's future lies within the alliance, and member states are intensifying military and economic aid to counter Russia's aggression. The EU is also advancing plans to ban transactions related to Russia's Nord Stream pipelines and lower the price cap on Russian oil to further strain Moscow's economy. Looking ahead, as the war approaches its fourth year, the latest attack underscores the challenges facing diplomatic efforts to end the conflict. With President-elect Donald Trump set to return to office in January 2026, there is uncertainty about the future of U.S. military aid to Ukraine, given his stated goal of ending U.S. involvement in the war. Ukrainian officials and European allies feared that reduced support could force Ukraine to cede territory in any negotiated settlement. For now, Ukraine continues to bolster its domestic defense industry, aiming to produce 30,000 long-range drones and 3,000 long-range missiles in 2026 to reduce reliance on Western aid. Meanwhile, the international community braces for potential further escalations as Russia intensifies its assaults and Ukraine responds with Western-supplied weaponry.